Let your spirit rise.
You are listening to the Voice of the Arts, WQED-FM. I'm Jim Cunningham. We have the Reverend Dr. Herbert Jones with us from the Heritage Gospel Choir of Pittsburgh, one of the directors of the Let Freedom Sing concert. The concert is Monday, January 15th, 7 p.m., Kelly Strayhorn Theater. It'll also be live streamed, so you can see it on the web. Anqwenique Kinsel's going to sing. Nikki Porter will conduct. The Heritage Gospel Choir will be there. The MLK Festival Singers. And Mikey Hood from KDKA will be the Master of Ceremonies.
Yes.
This concert is always inspirational. It lifts you up.
Yeah, we're excited about it. The first year that we organized it, we meaning Chris Rust, Vanessa German, and I got together and talked about having an event centered around the philosophies and the beliefs of the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and we were going to do it 1 year. And so we talked about the format, and the format was we were going to invite 7 choirs, and in the first half, those choirs will do 2 pieces of their own choosing, and I chose a repertoire for the second half and combined them. And we were just going to do where 2 communities that normally would not have come together, which was East Liberty and Murraysville. And we had the Monday night concert at 6 Mile Zion Baptist Church, and Saturday night concert, at 6 Mile Zion Baptist Church, and the Monday night concert at Franklin Regional. Well, we had the snowstorm on the first day, and we thought, oh, people are not going to come. Au contraire, monsieur. There were 1,300 people at that Saturday night concert and 900 and something at the Monday night concert. First year, urban meets suburban, community celebrating community in community. 1 year, and people were so impressed and loved it so much. And they said, we hope you will make this an annual event. Here we are 17 years later.
You have lots of seats to fill at the Kelly Strayhorn Theater. Who should come to this event?
Everybody, children, elderly, entrepreneurs who want to learn more about the culture of African American sacred music. Celebrate community as I always say, celebrating community in community with community, and they will be a part of that community.
The spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. will be felt at this event.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you bring people from across the river, too. People who live in Squirrel Hill like to stay in Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh. But you brought South Hills folks over to East Liberty.
Yes, what we're doing is the concept of community is a big C, and we want to make sure that we have as diverse audience members and participants as possible. So we have professional singers, we have semi-professional singers, we have church choirs, we have high school singers, we have community choir singers, and we have those people who just love to sing and are not necessarily singing in any organization, but they have to learn the repertoire. And it has become like a big family reunion now over these 17 years.
What music will be performed?
The first half, the chorale will be featured. I'm doing Somebody's Knocking by Dr. Raymond Wise from Indiana University. It Happened on Calvary is also his piece. We're doing A Mighty Fortress, a gospel anthem setting by Philip Jones, and then Psalm 117 by Cedric Rowson. Then we will feature Anqwenique Kinsel between sets. And then combined choirs, Nikki Porter will be doing 2 pieces. Her pieces are Come Thou Almighty King by Timothy Wright, a gospel version, and then We Shall Overcome by Tom Trini. And then I will conduct Ondine Smith Moore's Daniel, Daniel, Servant of the Lord, and Josephine Polenet's City Called Heaven.
Now, I'll know some of the tunes, right?
You would know some of the tunes, especially the We Shall Overcome, the City Called Heaven. It's many settings. There are solo settings, there are choral settings, but this particular setting is very, very nice. It has a jazz bluesy accompaniment, and the choir has this subtle kind of movement, and then all of a sudden in the middle section they come big and then they come back down, and it has a little like a quasi solo section. But it's all music that everyone can relate to and identify with.
And will I hear Let Freedom Ring?
You will hear We Shall Overcome, which is a setting under that umbrella of Let Freedom Ring. And that's interesting you should ask that question, because Stan Spotsworth composed a setting of Let Freedom Ring. And I was going to do that this year and chose to do it for next year. So I guess you're being prophetic here, right?
Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And you've got Dr. Alton Merrell. He plays the piano.
He plays the piano as well. And Uliana, who is my accompanist, along with Bill Taylor, the drummer, and Willie Franklin on bass guitar. Those are our instrumentalists.
Tell me a little bit more about those extraordinary musicians. They're known in music circles here in Pittsburgh.
Yes, Uliana happens to be on the teaching faculty at Carnegie Mellon, and she does high school, the Ellis School as well. William Bill Taylor is known in all of the circles as a drummer. Bill and I have worked together now for some 13, 14 years. Willie Franklin was recommended because our former bass guitarist who transitioned a few years ago, Don McNeil, was such a loss for all of us, and we were still mourning that. But Willie Franklin has stepped in, and loves what he does, and he's excellent bass guitarist.
You started the Heritage Gospel Choral.
Yes, I started the Heritage Gospel Choral. The Heritage Gospel Choral, I sent letters to former members of the former Pittsburgh Gospel Choir and asked if they would consider having a meeting with me 15 years ago to talk about the possibility of forming another ensemble, a new ensemble. And at that meeting, I had 35 singers who came, but I sent 15 envelopes to members specifically wanting them. And out of that was birthed the Heritage Gospel Choral. Now, what I did was I gave them a list of names for the chorale from which to choose. And my choice was the Heritage Gospel Choral of Pittsburgh. I didn't say that to them, and that was the last one on the list. I gave them 7 names, and everybody, with the exception of 4 people, wanted the Heritage Gospel Choral of Pittsburgh. The other one wanted the Heritage Gospel, just the Heritage Gospel Choral. So here we are.
How did gospel become so much a part of your life? You studied it in school.
Yes.
You went to the University of Mississippi. You came here. You studied, got your doctorate in ethnomusicology at the University of Pittsburgh. Am I correct about that?
I did PhD studies in ethnomusicology with the late Corbana and Katia. And then from there, I went to the University of Arkansas to direct the Inspirational Chorale, which is now directed by Dr. Jeffrey Murdoch. And then from there, did some more teaching and conducting across the country and out of the country. And then did the doctorate in choral conducting, performance pedagogy, and choral music education at Ole Miss.
And gospel's always been there.
Gospel has always been there. Not only did I conduct the top choir, which is the concert singers at Ole Miss, and men's glee, but I also was the conductor of the Ole Miss Gospel Choir. Now, historically, Ole Miss Gospel Choir is the first and only college gospel choir to ever be nominated for a Grammy.
Wow. Amazing.
It was. And it was a joy. 108 singers that loved doing what they did.
Tell me about gospel and the gospel tradition in America. Where did it begin? It began in a very sad way, yes? It began with enslaved peoples working in the field.
And there's a musical tracing that comes there. You had the field hollers that led into the spirituals and the blues and jazz, but gospel has always, the good news as it is translated, has always been in the heart and in the mind of the African American primarily. Now there's Southern gospel, which is more Caucasian oriented, but the gospel music itself was a way in which those persons who were enslaved and those persons who were oppressed could communicate with God musically when they couldn't necessarily read, but they had the song in their heart. When they couldn't necessarily when they weren't necessarily allowed to read or have the opportunity to be free, that was a means of being free. And so gospel music, then you've got the founder, the godfather and the grandfather of modern gospel music at the time, Thomas Dorsey, and who gave us the traditional gospel music style. And then you have the late Reverend James Cleveland, who formed the Gospel Music Workshop of America, where I have the distinct pleasure of being a part and overseeing the academic division, who brought the contemporary aspect. And he did that because he wanted a platform where church choirs, professional gospel singers, artists could come together to be trained, to hone their skills, and to just perform. And so gospel music then became is a part, I should say, not just was, but is a part, especially the African American worship experience. And because there were so many people who were not of the African American culture who wanted to do gospel music, so you have composers and arrangers now who write gospel music so that those who can read but not necessarily play by ear can do gospel music in their worship services. So gospel is here to stay.
And will I find you with a church choir on Sunday morning?
You will find me at Bethany Baptist Church as minister of music there. My time with the church choir is on first and third Sundays, but I have a staff where on the second Sunday the praise team ministers and the Sunshiners, which is the children and youth choir. And on the fourth and fifth Sundays, we have a combination of praise team, Heavenly Hands, which is the deaf ministry that worships with us, and the church choir as well.
This is a good town for gospel music.
This is a great town for gospel. If you want some really good gospel music, you should go to Mount Ararat Baptist Church. You can go to Pentecostal Temple, both in East Liberty. You can go to Macedonia in the Hill. You can even go to Ebenezer in the Hill. They have a new person there, Chris, who is exceptional. Now, that's an example where you have someone who is able to read and play by ear, but is not African American, but has that whole gospel flavor. And you can go to Rodman Street Baptist Church, and all of those churches have solid gospel music. There are others, but those definitely stick out.
And if I want to hear the completely unrestrained kind of ecstatic gospel church that we see in the Blues Brothers with Aretha Franklin and the band roaring and the preacher declaiming and everyone's exclaiming and it's just totally wild and free. Where would I find that?
I think you will find elements of that at each of those, especially at the Mount Ararat, because there are some 15 to 21,000 members there. They have a Saturday night service and then 3 services on Sunday. Now it's 2 because I think one of the services cut out. But then you can even go to Eastminster where Nikki Porter is. She has an incredible setting there. Rodman Street where Alton Merrell is. You've got, as I mentioned, Macedonia where Jason Washington is. Those churches give you a flavor of it all, the traditional, the modern, the contemporary, the Pentecostal aspect. And then, of course, you can come to my church, Pentecostal Temple, and get it all as well.
And do you have a concern, because you come through academia, that sometimes academia filters out the unrestrained spirit of gospel music? It becomes more academic, I guess. Is that a concern? There's both kinds, really.
Yeah,
there are good parts in both things.
They're good. You're right. There are. I have gone through the times of being concerned about it because I think sometimes that we want to always intellectualize everything, but where there's a spiritual flow, where there is something that people can say, I don't know what it is about it, but it just makes me feel good. I don't know what it is about it, but there's just something. I just can't put my finger on it. Well, how do you academically explain that? Then you have to talk about it from a theological perspective. And then that's not to say that theology and academia does not go together or do not go together, but they do. But it's just the flavor of being able to be yourself, to be free within the confines of order. Within the confines of excellence, because even from the spiritual aspects, we know that God is a God of love. We know He's a God of mercy, but He's a God of excellence as well.
You mentioned gospel and jazz. Interests me a lot. How did the two become intertwined? John Coltrane definitely felt the spirit.
Yeah. Let's go back even farther. Thomas Dorsey was the pianist for blues singer Ma Rainey. And so when Thomas Dorsey went into the church and was converted and became so hooked on what was happening in the atmosphere, and the church, of course, didn't want that kind of musical stuff in the worship service. But Thomas Dorsey brought that style, the blues, his accompanying style, his playing style, to traditional gospel music, and therefore years later, here we are, the birth of traditional gospel music. Then you've got people like the James Johnson here in Pittsburgh, who brings a blend of jazz, who brings a blend of classical. Howie Alexander, who I adopted years ago as my nephew, phenomenal musicians. Nikki Porter, the conductor, same thing. You've got Alton Merrell, all of this, and then Alton Merrell, and then Alton Mitchell. Those people, Dwayne Fulton at Mount Airy, those people bring all of the styles, the genres together in gospel music and to gospel music in the worship experience. There are churches who even have jazz worship experiences. They have the music, the settings, the hymns are all in the style of jazz. There's liturgy being read, and they do this, and it is just amazing, wonderful.
So much great stuff
So
happening
much great
in
stuff.
the city musically,
Yes,
and
yes.
the work that you do is such an important
Thank
part of
you.
it, no question. Now, I don't know that we've said enough about Mikey Hood. She's a beautiful and
Oh,
warm
my stars, we
presence. I
love
enjoy
her.
her on Pittsburgh Today Live. She's a star
Yes.
there on KDKA, and she kind of weaves things together. She does a greeting.
She does.
Sometimes you have the mayor come.
Yes,
That's fun.
Yes, yeah. He is supposed to be with us again this year. He comes to put his support in and his presence in, because he tries to do his whole community aspect where everybody comes together to celebrate community within community.
And the idea is everyone come. Yellow,
Yes.
brown,
Yes.
white, everybody come.
Yes, straight, gay, blind, disabled, whatever you are, we're all God's children.
It's a beautiful thing and a great day. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes.
Day has become bigger in America. It's now a
Yes.
national
Absolutely.
holiday. You like to think that things are getting better. So often what we hear on the news, it looks like it's going the other way, or we
Opposite,
haven't
right.
learned from history. But I like to think that things are getting better.
I think with events like the Let Freedom Sing, that's an example of things getting better, where you've got people of all walks of life, all professions, all nationalities, who come together just to celebrate. And what better way to celebrate than through the idiom of music?
Have we forgotten anything that we should mention? I can't imagine
I
why
don't
someone
think
listening
so.
to this conversation wouldn't join you. It's going to be so great. And you can see it with your shoes off in home in your living room
Absolutely,
on the web,
absolutely.
too. Now,
Yeah.
for that, you just go to YouTube and search on Let Freedom Sing. How would I find it?
Yes, go to Let Freedom Sing, and if you go to Let Freedom Sing website, all of the information how you can join us on the 15th is there.
And if you're moved to make a contribution, the East End Cooperative Ministries will benefit.
Yes, absolutely, and there's a donate link on the website.
There are still hungry people in Western
Still.
Pennsylvania, and the food pantry will be aided by any
Yes.
contribution that might
Yes,
be made
absolutely.
at the event at the Kelly Strayhorn Theater. Let
Absolutely.
Freedom Sing with
Yes.
Dr. VRP Herbert Jones. VRP stands for the Very Right Reverend Professor Jones, does it not?
No, it stands for 3 generations of grandfathers. It's Vincent Ricardo Piedro. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you are here today
I
and
am
doing your great work
thankful.
in the city of Pittsburgh. Such a joy and
Thank you.
a real treasure you are.
Thank you so much.
Spirit